and all the council people can go back and watch this, so that's why.
Okay.
So that's why it's like this. So if you don't see anybody here, it's not because I'm going to ask you the questions you're answering, but this gives every council person an opportunity to go back on to watch you answer the
And
questions.
do we cut this on?
We need to cut this on right now. So we're about to start.
Yeah, so it's 1 o'clock.
You're about to be on TV. You're on there now. Fabian, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
So my name is Kevin Roten. I'm Councilman Kevin Roten. Obviously, I am the chair of this subcommittee for us to select the Community Oversight Board. Councilman Fabian Bedney, Council Lady Erica Gilmore. There are others that will be coming and going as you may come in. You have 10 minutes. We have 3 questions. Did you receive the 3 questions in the mail?
I did.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the 3 questions. You just answer the questions, and when you're through, just stop, and I'll ask you the next question. If there's any time left, we may ask you some questions, okay? So the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
The reason I applied for this is because this is what I do. I deal with a lot of conflict management in my job and its resolution. I've been doing it for 11 years. I'm involved in a ministry that is all over the world. And the people that were in there before me were sort of authoritarian, and I had to fix that up. So I've been doing that for the past 11 years. And people tell me I'm quite good at it. What I think, the reason I want to do this is because I think we have an opportunity here to form a real relationship between the police department and the communities. And I think if we set that example on this board, I think it goes just an awful long way to settling the problems that exist.
Thank you. The second question is, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
My experience is strictly in my job once a year for a full day. We do training on civil rights and equity. We spend 1 day every year doing that. Other than that, I can just tell you I was a kid in college in the 60s. And so there was a lot of civil rights going on in the 60s and early 70s. And I was involved, I think, in good ways, but I'm always open to learn more, that's for sure. But
Okay. And the third question is, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Not much with police. However, prior to coming here, I was a chief security officer at an airport in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And so I had top clearances I've stood in front of W. Bush and helped the Secret Service get around and secure our airport for the visits that came in. I would constantly go to FAA and FBI trainings, but other than that, the actual police department, other than I was robbed while I was here in my apartment, and the police were very nice to me. We didn't recover anything, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
I usually have 1 question I ask of everybody, so 2 questions. So in what ways were you involved with the civil rights, more specifically? You said you were involved in the 60s. Could you elaborate more?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the north, but there were certain activities and things that went on there, and I was part of that as a college student.
Okay. So can you just tell me what activities, if you don't mind sharing?
Protests,
Okay.
some things I'm not proud of, maybe. But it was mostly going to the protests and learning more about what was going on in the South, although I could never make the trips. But I attended a lot of meetings and seminars on what was going and where people could help.
Okay. To eliminate it.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, just want to be clear. Okay, and then the second question is, what opportunities do you see for the Community Oversight Board? Opportunities outside of the scope that's already been laid out?
Ooh, I don't know that I've thought about that. Well, I'm the eternal optimist in my family, and I believe that this can be a real board that can work through the community and like I said earlier, get some trust. Get some trust in what's going on and be a good liaison between the communities and the police department, and in fact form some policies on things to do that are the right things to do for community and for the police and make recommendations.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Bobby? All right. Thank you, Mr. Engroff. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so
And
much.
we really appreciate your willingness to serve because this is a time-consuming thing, and and it's a big deal, and everybody's looking at it. So we really thank you for being
Thank you,
here.
Councilman. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, thank you, we appreciate you.
Thanks.
Just start the questions on this next one because I left my phone in the car and my glasses, and I can't see, and I don't know what's going on.
That was fine. That's fine.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I just had to fight my daughter to get out.
Welcome to the lab.
Yeah.
So Kevin's here.
Yeah.
He just went to go get his glasses. I can
You're
stand
there.
up.
You're
And
there.
you're over here if you want to be over here.
Toby is not here, right?
No, not yet.
Okay.
She's,
Where's Ella?
I don't know, he said someone gonna join us.
Yes.
Me too. Do you
He says, no, he may join us, he may not.
Oh, would you like me to get you?
Oh, right. Oh. Okay.
My knee is hurting. My knee is hurting. To wash the dogs. You just stuck them outside the door.
Yeah, because they get
And
away.
put some shampoo on them and said, get out there, run around.
We don't like to get sprayed with a hose. We have to take a bucket of water
And pour it over it.
and pour it over real slowly. And even then, he don't like that, but he goes crazy.
And start running around.
That's Jackson's dog.
Oh,
A little husky German Shepherd.
oh, wow.
Who's next?
Yeah.
The next one is,
Yep. And we got 3 minutes, yeah.
Abernathy.
International Lady Director. Oh, okay. Nice. This is really helpful. I mean, read the
Yeah, I know.
This is,
You want to look at the next one?
which one is that?
This is the best. I was just reading the rest of it. I was reading some of the stuff. Margaret Abernathy, real quick. Okay.
Question for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Education, really.
Every time we ask about civil rights, people seem to want to answer like if it's something that happened in the past,
Yeah.
like in the 60s or something.
Yeah.
I was actually, that was my commentary too. It's so interesting to me that people don't equate civil rights with anything that's happening today.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if that's me being a new American. I mean, I experienced the 60s in Argentina, but I don't know. I was just wondering if that's a cultural competency, that thing.
Yeah. No, I think everybody tries to reflect the civil rights era with what went on in the past still today. And we're dealing with two totally different things. So.
But I noticed that response from everybody.
Everybody, yeah. Now there are some that, especially some that were around during the civil rights era, that can show, the process of being able to relate and respond and stand up for what is right. So that's probably their answer to that question.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I noticed that myself. So.
This was on here, because I know some people are typing and some people are handwriting, some people are typing this off online, but they had an opportunity to get it online and type it, and I had to go and type it.
Trying to see the separation of this and find out. Let me see. Margaret Abernathy. This is Huddleston. We did this.
Your seat is up here.
Okay. Hello. How are you, Ms. Abernathy?
Thanks. How are y'all?
All right. Good. Thank you for coming and being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, was that a part of your initial application?
Yes.
Okay, it's, we actually have that.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We'll take it.
But we'll take it.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll take it
again.
as well.
Yeah, you have a little book
Yeah,
over here.
yeah. Well, again, thank you for coming. I'm Councilman Hastings and the other council people that are here as well with us. We have 3 questions, and did you receive the 3 questions during the application period? All right. Well, again, thank you for coming. Number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Sure. I have always, in all of the communities I've lived in, been active and involved in the communities, and I feel like it's important. It's sort of a responsibility in our communities to do that. I have served in different capacities and on various boards, on various, and I've worked individually as a volunteer. I've worked on boards. I've done different things. So that's very important to me in terms of our community. I have a particular interest in civil rights and equity issues and a particular interest in policing issues. It's something that has been important to me for a long time. My husband is a retired Army military. He was in the Army for 30 years, and we have, in our family, had a lot of conversations about, since the Afghanistan and Iraqi wars, the over-militarization of American police forces and how lots of dumping of armaments and military ideas into American police forces has had a detrimental effect. It's created a sense of war in American cities, or being at war in American cities, in a way that has not been productive. And that's something that again, my husband, who is 30 years in the military as an infantryman, combat ranger, he sees as a negative, and certainly I, as his wife, have also seen the negatives of that. And we think, or I think, that those types of things contribute to the dangers that are now facing our cities, and the mentality that creates dangers in over-policed areas, and it's an issue that I find very difficult to accept in a community I live in. And so that's one of the reasons I have a particular interest in this issue.
Well, thank you very much for your honest answers. All right. Question 2, please describe your background and or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so I was raised by 2 college professors who were taking me to marches as a very young child. So it's been a family issue all my life. And my most recent involvement with equity issues is on the leadership team with the Equity Alliance. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Equity Alliance. We work in communities of color, dealing with civic engagement and helping people find their voice, reaching out to communities, educating, empowering, promoting leadership, that kind of thing. And so I was on the leadership team. I was the fund development manager. And that's been a really profound experience for me, an important experience for me. And I got involved with them because I had a strong, as I feel strongly about the policing issue, I feel strongly about the issues of disenfranchisement. And so I cared a great deal about that. I've taught school for a long time. I'm not teaching now in private practice, but the schools that I taught in were always schools that were underserved. They were schools that were not receiving their fair share of funds. And I dealt with lots of students who, frankly, I dealt with very few parents. The school I'm thinking of right now I taught 6th grade. I didn't deal with, I think I had 2 parents out of the whole class. Otherwise, I was dealing with guardians, grandparents, or parole officers. A couple of social workers who were in the foster care system. And I found that those people who were in charge of these young people didn't even know what these kids' civil rights were. And they were getting railroaded. They were losing opportunities in education. They were losing opportunities in the community because the adults in their lives didn't even know what their rights were. And if it was someone who did know, they were overworked, underpaid, and they weren't making sure these kids were getting what they needed. So that's always been an issue for me. I served on the Foster Care Review Board in our community in Bedford County when I lived there for over 8 years. And that's very much like Community Oversight Board. We were a judicial, we have judicial authority. We served under the auspices of the Tennessee Supreme Court. We brought people in for hearings on a monthly basis. And we were really an oversight board of the Department of Children's Services. And so I spent 8 years doing that. And it was very important to me because that was, again, protecting the children who were in the system. I was also dealing with the criminal justice system, the judicial system, in that almost every child we dealt with was in the system because they were involved with the criminal justice or judicial system. Either their parent was incarcerated or had been arrested, or the child came into the system because of parent crime, or the child came into the system because the child had been arrested. And so I dealt with those problems for over 8 years, and I saw what the issues were. On another note, I am part of a greatly vilified community. Yeah. My family can't even come to America anymore. I'm Iranian, and we're on the list.
Oh, wow.
So I am used to what happens to Middle Easterners in this country. Yeah. I've lived it, I've watched it, I've been through it, and I got the civil rights issues on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go to question number 3. Mm-hmm. Please describe your background and experience and familiarity in criminal justice and policy practices.
Well, I kind of wrapped that up. I think I just did that.
You dealt with it, but if you wanted to use that time to say something else, yeah.
Sure. I have dealt with it pretty extensively in the course of my professional life, my volunteer service, and in my personal life. I have a daughter who has special needs. I've dealt extensively with the issues of people with special needs and their civil rights. I know that there's a big overlay between people in underserved communities who are also special needs and their interactions with policing. And that is often a very difficult situation. Very often people don't understand when they're dealing with someone with special needs. Police actually don't understand dealing with someone with special needs, the issues. And when someone is not responding or doing what they're told because they don't understand, if you're dealing with an autistic person, that creates even more need for understanding, for willingness to listen and take into account the issues instead of jerk reactions. Mm-hmm. I also want to say that I understand that there are reasons police may feel threatened today. I am not one-sided, and I am fair-minded. I think that our gun culture is a frightening thing for police today. I think the idea that we have guns everywhere in our country today, and the laws are such that anyone can walk anywhere with a gun, makes it a pretty scary thing. I also want to let you know that I'm very excited about the opportunity to do this. I spent all last year working aggressively, as some of my friends can tell you, on political campaigns. Those have gone by the wayside, not exactly as I had hoped they would go. And I have the time and energy to step up and do this. I've spent time developing in my professional career in the past, helping create a professional organization from scratch that is currently still thriving after 15 years. 8 people and I put together an organization, the Southern Association of Boarding Schools, that is still in place and working and making a big impact on education. I've started organizations from scratch. I've worked on the putting things together and getting them going, and I have the time to do it, and the energy and the passion to do it, and I would really love the opportunity.
Well, we thank you very much for your time, and thank you for taking the opportunity to come and serve.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, Vice Chair, Vice Chair. Yeah.
Vice Chair's not here and Chair had to go away,
Yeah.
so I need to make sure the Vice Chair.
We'll bring her in right at, is that?
Filming, substitute.
Yeah, of course, that's right.
What's that?
You had to go.
I left my glasses and my phone.
Those are the questions you're going to be asked.
Okay.
Ms. Donna Whitney?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, we like to make sure the right person and the right name is there. So you're being filmed right now, obviously. So this is for the Community Oversight Board, and this is a subcommittee. And what we do is we give you 10 minutes to speak. We have 3 questions. Answer each question. Get as much time as you want within the 10 minutes. If there's any time left over, we will ask questions of you then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay. I'm aware that there's been controversy about police conduct at certain times, and I think the Community Oversight Board has been a good idea, and I think that it's important for those who serve on it to be people who are willing to think critically, identify and set aside their own biases, and embrace the idea that it's less important what we think than how we think. And I do bring those strengths, and so that's what I would like to offer the board if I have the opportunity to serve.
Okay, thank you. Please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. I became interested in civil rights as a child. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York where healthcare was segregated. And my father was, I think, the first healthcare provider, he was a dentist, to have an integrated healthcare practice, racially integrated. And of course, he came home with stories, and I grew up hearing those stories. Some of them might have had their amusing aspects, but at their foundation, they were tragic stories. My father faced certain consequences for his choices. He tried to shield my sister and me as children from those consequences, but he did face some consequences. But he never doubted that it was worth it, and neither did we. When I had the opportunity to go away to boarding school as a 9th grader, some of my classmates and I formed our first civil rights organization in our boarding school, and that was a project that not only transformed us and transformed our school, I think forever for the better, but created bonds of friendship that have lasted my whole life. This morning has been like every other morning in that it has included text messages from those same women with whom we formed the Civil Rights Organization together.
Thank you very much. And your third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
As I mentioned in my written application, and I do apologize for the poor handwriting.
Oh, that's all right. That's what they're looking at. They're kind of looking you over as you talk.
Sorry about that. I really thought I was offering my best penmanship, but then when I read it over, I realized that my best is really not that hot. Sorry about that. I am a retired physician, but the penmanship issue goes back before that. My father was commissioner of police in our town for I don't know how many years. And so I learned a fair amount, at least from a child's perspective, about policing. And most of the time it went well. But there's one incident that really stands out in my mind. My older sister had then and has now kind of a heavy foot on the accelerator. And she got pulled over one time for speeding and was not given a ticket because of who her father was. And my father was not pleased about that. He felt and made it known to the force that
it was not okay to deprive any child of the consequences, the normal, natural consequences of her actions. And that while, the courtesy to the family was very nice, it actually is a discourtesy to the rest of the community. And that made an impact on me, that, fair is fair and unfair is unfair, no matter what, and no matter who.
Thank you so much, Ms. Whitney. I appreciate that. So, my grandfather was assistant chief of police here in Nashville as well, so I understand where you come from. So,
Yeah, I still have Daddy's badge on my desk.
yeah, I used to see him come in, and I'd be like, oh, okay. So, do we have any questions for anybody?
I do. So I have one clarifying question, and I just have one question I asked of everybody. So your father was both a dentist and a commissioner of police?
That and many other things,
Wow.
yes.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. And so the second question I have, and I've just been asking everyone that, are what opportunities do you see on the Community Oversight Board outside of the general kind of guidelines and outlines that have been set out for the board? So what things do you think that you could do kind of outside of the box, or?
That I personally could do outside of the box.
Well, not just you personally, or just ideas that you could bring for the Community Oversight Board that's not kind of, you got some things that you got to do, right? You got to do investigations, but what are some other opportunities there that you could use the board?
I need to think for a minute. I think one of the things I bring is kind of a wide range of vision. I mean, I'm a retired physician, I'm a retired teacher, I'm a candidate for the Master's of Divinity degree this May, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I serve a congregation at the moment in North Nashville. Actually, it's my congregation that nominated me. So, I've worn a lot of hats, and I know that other people wear a lot of hats too, and there are lots of different ways of looking at what seems to be the same thing. And I like to employ that breadth of vision and not just look through the same lenses all the time.
Thank you.
Are you still teaching some?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Bobby?
Yeah, you do get involved in civil rights issues and currently, right? I mean, I think you are involved in your congregation, other places like that. Can you talk to more like a current view of how you see the civil rights issues today? That's a big question, so.
That is a big question. I think we are at a moment of crisis in this country. Overt expressions of hatred have become normalized, and I see my role, I'm not someone who typically marches in marches, but I maintain an awareness of these issues just as I go about my daily business, and very often actually, I have the opportunity to ask someone in a way that hopefully is engaging rather than polarizing. Do you really think so? How come? Maybe it's not that way. So it's more a matter of my daily living than formal involvement, but it is a daily practice on my part.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I was just going to point out, I think you are playing yourself underplaying yourself a little bit, because I looked in and I saw that you do a lot of, not necessarily civil rights, but more international. I saw where you headed a couple of things in Africa.
That was only a month, but I had a blast. When I was teaching at Watkins College, they actually sent me there as a professional development opportunity. But while I was there, I was volunteering with actually the preeminent environmental nonprofit on the continent, Food and Trees for Africa. And they're involved in planting permaculture gardens, trees, and bamboo in places that were deprived of those things during the apartheid era.
Ms. Whitney, I don't mean to push you along, but they're pushing me along. So, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your time and your willingness to serve. It really means a lot to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just tell me I asked the question on the end.
Yeah, you did.
I did
Okay,
it.
my jacket is stuck under the chair.
I did it.
All right.
Good to see you too.
See, in this book, it only has basically one sheet.
You got
I
the
know,
book.
that's what
I got nothing.
you do my book.
I got the names and I have to write down myself.
Yeah.
Miss Amanda Lucas, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
All right, good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate your willingness to serve and the time that you've taken. I know this takes a lot of time, and your willingness to come down here on a rainy day to speak to us, so I appreciate that.
Well, I've always heard it's just an honor to be nominated, but in this case, I think it's really true. I'm just very honored to be here and to represent NOAA and the city of Nashville.
Thank you so much. So we have 10 minutes with you. You know the 3 questions that we have. I think they're sitting on a sheet right there beside you. I'm just going to ask you each question. You just answer each question, and if we have any time left over, you might get some questions from the group, okay? So we'll just go ahead with the first question. Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Back in 2016, I had actually started to develop my own plan for a COB. I didn't realize that there were members of the community that were already working on it. And after Jacquees Clemens was killed, I really started in earnest because several years ago when I worked for Davidson County Juvenile Court, I served on the Child Death Review team. And it was an interdisciplinary task force that reviewed the deaths of minors in Davidson County. And I felt like that was a really good model for something for community oversight. Having different members of the community with different skill sets be able to review incidents like these. And so that's how I became interested in it. In my research, I got in touch with NOAA when I found out that they were already working on it. And I've actually been working for the past 18 months on researching other cities, what they're doing that's successful, specifically Austin, Texas, and Tucson, Arizona. Been in touch with Liana Perez, who's a member of NACOL. I think I have a unique set of skills in regard to the fact that I've served on a board like this before, which the Child Death Review team is similar in scope. And I'm a former law enforcement officer. I was a parole officer in the early 90s in Atlanta. And I can talk about that more when we talk about background in criminal justice. And as a current licensed clinical social worker, I'm a psychotherapist. I have a lot of knowledge of trauma. Trauma is one of my specialties. So I just think that throughout my experience in my career, I just have a skill set that I think could be really useful on the board.
Thank you so much. The next question is, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
This is a thing that has come up repeatedly in my career. It's something I saw a lot when I was a parole officer. I felt that some of my clients were very unfairly incarcerated for things that the paperwork itself reflected they did not do. And so going back a little, in my time in college, I did some work in Mississippi around voter rights. I helped review voter rolls in a small town in Mississippi to purge several dead people who had been voting in a very small town and other barriers for people of color to be able to vote in that county. When I was in Davidson County Juvenile Court and I managed truancy cases, what I observed was white children being treated in the mental health system and black children being expelled or suspended from school. One of our efforts with NOAA is breaking the school to prison pipeline, and I kind of did a bit of that on my own by attending IEP meetings for children of color and insisting that they receive the services, especially mental health services, that they needed to stay in school rather than being expelled or suspended for their what was coined behavioral issues.
Thank you. And the third one, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
I was involved with the Vanderbilt Prison Project when I was an undergraduate at Vanderbilt University and worked in several correctional facilities as a volunteer, including the Tennessee State Penitentiary, several youth facilities, they went by different names back then, Tennessee Prison for Women. And so I have a very keen interest in criminal justice and reform, actually, of the criminal justice system. And so I went to work as a parole officer. It was a very progressive time. I did a lot of work that like an adult case manager would do, checking on my clients, making sure that they were taking their meds, helping them access the services they need in order to stay stable and out of the criminal justice system. But I was a fully sworn law enforcement officer. I had responsibility for arresting my clients. And I've been on several arrests. I did not arrest people nearly at the rate that, you know, an active police officer would, but it was certainly a regular occurrence. And I understand the complicated nature of that. I understand how difficult it is to make those split-second decisions when you're terrified because you're walking into a situation and you don't know who is there. I mean, I knew my parolees, but I did not know their cousins or their uncles or sisters and did not know, you know, what to expect from them. But I was able to establish a pretty strong rapport with my clients. And it's part of the reason that I feel like trust and accountability and mutual respect is so important in law enforcement.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. So what ideas do you have for the Community Oversight Board outside of the scope that's already been provided?
Right. I would like to see us play some role, and I don't know what that would look like because I don't know the parameters of civil service and things like that, but about reconciliation. You know, one of the programs that I supervised when I was with the Vanderbilt Prison Project was with Reconciliation Ministries, about, you know, bringing police and bringing members of the community who maybe have had a conflict together. I don't know what that would look like necessarily, but I think that that could really serve the community well to have something like that. I would love to talk about trauma. I would love to talk with officers about fight or flight and how people do not have control over that, especially when they have trauma issues. And that flight doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is guilty or somebody should be seen as suspicious. The Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled on that about 2 years ago, that merely running from the police is not sufficient probable cause to believe that somebody has done something wrong. And just help people understand psychologically what goes through someone's mind. You know, even as a white woman, I'm scared to death when I'm stopped. I don't know what to expect. And I think a lot of well-meaning officers don't understand how much fear is involved in officer contact for lots of members of the community, but especially people of color.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
You're just in private practice now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's most of just typical patients that you see for psychotherapy?
Yes, I know. I've worked at the Vanderbilt Psychiatric Hospital. I've worked in a lot of different places, so I no longer work with severely mentally ill people.
My wife worked there.
Oh, okay.
She's a peds nurse,
Oh,
neurology
really?
now.
Oh, okay.
Been there 30-some years.
Oh, wow.
Good place.
Yes.
So we got another minute or two?
We still got another minute or two.
Okay. So what got you interested in it before it came to the city and it was an idea of looking into or just researching different cities for the community oversight? What prompted you to do that?
What first got me thinking about a community
You
oversight board?
said you started looking at it before the
Yes.
jockeys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I'm listening. I'm really listening.
Wow, that's impressive. I was trying to think of what point in my career you were referring to. Actually, I think the precipitating incident, and I don't know if you guys remember this, was an incident at Hobson Elementary in Murfreesboro where there were 4 students, and I believe they were around the ages of 9 and 10.
And they got locked up.
And they were locked up for not stopping a fight that occurred off of school property. Like not during school, it was like after school. And they were arrested at school in full view of their peers for not stopping a fight, which I can't imagine how a 9 or a 10-year-old would be aware of the fact that that was their responsibility. And I was so concerned about that and about how that would affect those children that I wrote an op-ed for the Murfreesboro Daily Journal that didn't, you know, I know a lot of op-eds don't get accepted. It wasn't accepted or published. But I contacted the ACLU attorney that I think was assigned to the case at the time and spoke with her. And it's something, actually, I grew up outside of New York, and it's something, there was a famous case of Eleanor Bumpers, of a woman who had attacked the police with a knife, but there was not evidence to support that narrative. And so the idea of community oversight of police is something that I grew up with in the New York City area.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Lucas.
so
I
much.
really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. We really appreciate
Oh,
that.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sit right in the corner.
Not even letting us get people in.
Go sit next to me. Do you mind? I do. Sometimes.
Ms. Sherry Long? How are you?
Great. How are you?
Thank you. I want to just tell you how much we appreciate you being here and your willingness to serve on the Community Oversight Board. I know it's taken a lot of time, and so we appreciate what all you've done so far. So today we got 10 minutes. We got 3 questions. Did you receive the 3 questions so you know what will be?
No, I didn't.
You didn't receive that in an email form or a mail form or anything? So we have 3 questions to ask you. We'll let you answer each question, and then if there's any time left at the end, we might ask you a few more questions.
All right.
Okay? So the first question you have in front of you, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Well, interest into my survey is to give the community just a voice to their concerns. And I think that this is a vital tools of communication so they can address their issues.
Okay, thank you. Second question. Please describe your background or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. My name is Sherry Long. I'm a native of Nashville for 65 years. I reside at 101 Chapel Avenue. Councilman Rick Woodard is my councilman. And the civil rights, I'm familiar with that. It's against the law to discriminate based on a person's race, gender, religion, background, and education. And it's also a federal crime to force or intimidate a person on these areas.
Thank you. And the third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
I just have two familiarity. One was with, it was about 4 or 5 o'clock, East Nashville, and the police stopped me as I was trying to merge into an intersection, and he said I was blocking the street. Well, I was trying to get over there on the intersection to turn. So he stopped me, and he was cordial, nice and everything about that, but it took him about 15 minutes to run my tags and all that. So he came back and apologized for the long wait. And then another incident, it was with my son. He was driving his Corvette. It was a 2014, and he was pulled over at North Nashville. We was just going down the street, and they pulled us over and asked for his license and everything. So they ran that, so 10 minutes, and they said, well, and he was in the Army, he was a master sergeant. So he said, well, have a nice day.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. I have 2.
Okay.
Yes. How are you doing?
Pardon?
I said, how are you doing?
Okay, I'm doing great.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. So the first one is this one I've been asking everybody, just so you know.
Okay.
And that is, what ideas or opportunities do you see for the Community Oversight Board outside of the guidelines that have already been laid out?
Well, I think that if this board is, it would stop down a whole lot of stopping individual for just how do I want to say it? It would stop a whole lot of, I would say, harassment. I mean, just stopping people just because what area you're in or what you're driving. It would give them, they would be accountable for their own actions when they do that, and they can't do it because it's against the law to do that. And it makes everybody would be more ease about the police. When they stop you, they will have a good, I say, where they're being stopped.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Now, are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your son's service.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
We thank you for that.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this is Lanier Green's mother.
Yes,
And so we appreciate your son for his service.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
But thank you, and thank you for offering yourself up. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming in. So,
And thank you for having me.
yes.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Do any of you want coffee or something?
No.
I'm going to heat mine up. How much time we got left? About 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Y'all keeping time over?
We're leaving that up to you guys.
Somebody out there is doing it.
50. You got 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes. 4 minutes and 30
Y'all doing
seconds.
okay today? See, I appreciate y'all because y'all don't have to be here, and y'all are here, and I know y'all have been here. Y'all like seen every one of us. Y'all might stay at home watching on TV, but
Yeah.
We've been working for free for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We're the only ones that have to. This is part of our job.
I will make you share those, but
Well, what?
I'm fasting from sugar.
Oh, okay.
So you're lucky.
All right, see, got caught today.
I had a friend who wouldn't let their kids have sugar, and so sometimes the kids would be like, "Can I just smell it?"
I love it. Yeah, they just look the
Like they get
aroma
something out of there, just the aroma.
Bless their hearts. I wouldn't let my daughter eat sugar when she was little either. She didn't have any cavities, and I had lots of cavities when I was little.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that with my daughter. We don't do the drinks that she has is sugar-free.
That's good. That's important. It's important. Yeah. His mother changed her hair.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
Yeah, it looked pretty nice. Yeah.
That's what I was like. Yeah. Well, you're very noticeable. Because it almost skipped me. I thought, I know her. Okay.
This is the one Candy took offense at because she thought it was her own people. He ain't talking all the way through here. He's just being loud.
Who?
Broughton.
Oh, yeah.
He's being loud.
I see, what's his name been on our list?
Well, the whole way the table goes out.
Over where?
Over there. Yeah.
Over here.
After, let me see. We only got 1 more minute.
So are they asking the same questions about the bill?
There's 3 standard questions that they ask everybody, and then at the end, after they've asked those 3 questions, if they have time, they've kind of peppered in other contextual questions based on what they've said so far.
How much time do they allot for each person?
10 minutes flat, yeah.
So is the whole process today?
Yep.
This is the last day, yeah.
Are you a journalist?
No, I'm a volunteer with Oversight now, the entity that got the board on the ballot. So we're learning more about all the candidates to see if there's people we should endorse for us.
You're not with NOAA, you are with the original.
Right.
I think a lot of people think NOAA
Patrick White.
Hello, how are you?
Very good.
All right.
Mr. Thomas Wrenne, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, just making sure, like to make sure we got the right person with the right name.
Thank you.
You're on television on Channel 3 and everybody can see your name, so we're making sure we got the right person with the right name on the board there. So
Very good.
we have 10 minutes with you, and you've probably received, did you receive the 3 questions that we were going to be asking you? Okay. So I'm just going to ask you the 3 questions. You answer each question, and if we have any time left, you'll get some questions from this group here, and it's usually pretty easy. So anyway, so the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to address this committee. The reason why I wish to serve on the committee is probably about multifold. The primary reason, however, is that I believe that I want to become part of something that is very positive. I think this committee can have a very positive impact on the lives of the members of this community, as well as having a very positive impact on the Metropolitan Police Department as well.
Thank you very much. The next question you have in front of you is please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Just have to pull back to my degree that I in sociology, my undergraduate studies, my employment history. I was a manager of a very large national insurance carrier. In that capacity, I managed 35 employees. I had to become very familiar with civil rights as it respects to employment. In terms of EEOC, equal opportunity for the merit system. The case in point, there was an allegation that was filed against a member of in a different branch, and I was one of 7 managers that was asked to conduct an investigation on a corporate level and respond to the Department of Labor and to file our responses to key management with recommendations for corrective action.
Thank you very much. And the third question is please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Back in the 80s, I attended the Memphis Police Academy. That was my first introduction into the criminal justice system as it respects to policing, civil rights, in terms of policing as well.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have 2 questions. One, could you explain what your findings were when you did the investigation, you said on a corporate level?
With findings, we found that the individual who made the allegations was just in her claim. We did what we could to correct the situation with the employee, and we made recommendations for corrective action on the employee.
Can you speak specifically what those recommendations were?
One was to enhance training. There was also a demotion that was involved.
Okay. Then I have one more question. This question I've asked of all the candidates. What opportunities do you see outside of the guidelines that have already been provided for the Community Oversight Board?
I see that it would be. I think it would be a solidifying body, bringing the community more in focused with the common goals, the direction that Nashville wants to go in.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have any other questions? Larry Fabian.
He lives in my district. I was reached me to nominate him. I was happy to do that. I love it when people want to get involved, so thank you for reaching out to me and you're interested in serving the city.
Mr. Wrenne, we really want to thank you because I know it's taken a lot of time and out of your day, and on a rainy day, on this rainy Saturday, you're coming down here. We appreciate you coming down here and be willing to serve on this board.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Appreciate it.
coming.
All right.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got some.
5 minutes.
I know, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. And then after we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have a 10-minute break, and then we have one other
Do
one.
you have a 10-minute break?
And then we have a long break. I don't know why we had such a long break. Did somebody call and said they couldn't show up, and so they stuck them at 3:50 and 3:40? We could be out of here at 3 o'clock if we didn't have those 2 other people.
Yeah. Well,
Huh?
I just said cha-cha.
I mean, we got to sit around here for 40 minutes.
I got
Yeah.
no problem.
But I guess we can use that 40 minutes to try to narrow down the people.
yeah.
Eric, you gonna be here at 3?
Yeah, I'm gonna be here at 3.
That's fine.
I'm here for the long road today. I have enough time.
Kind of discuss who we think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be here.
We can handle it.
Run down here real
Yeah,
quick
we
and
just-
come back.
We have to go. Yeah. Well. Yeah,
Thank you all for being here, coming all the way.
Now, where are you? What groups are y'all from? Because I haven't asked y'all. So, are y'all from any specific organizations, or y'all just here to watch?
I was just at the Women's March,
Oh, okay. So y'all.
so we thought we'd come in and see
Come
what's
up
going on. I live in Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
And my sister here is from Nashville, and she's telling me some about the new
COB.
board, the
Yeah.
Oversight Board, and it sounds like an
So
interesting.
y'all kind of know what all's going on. There's
Yeah.
4 different rooms going on. It's all being recorded. So if you want to watch anybody in particular, you can go back on Channel 3 and watch them.
Yeah.
So.
It's today.
Well, I think there are lots of us who have become activists
Yeah.
since 2006.
I got here.
Oh, okay.
It was already too late to go sign.
We need to
because
be
it
more
started at the
interested
same time.
in what's going
But
on.
we appreciate y'all being here and
But I'm
taking the
going to
time.
see
It's
you
important.
and just go.
Yeah. Thank you
It's
for coming.
important and it's much drier in here.
I was hoping that there would be some immediate civic engagement out of this rally, and there you go.
I have it. My sister-in-law made one.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We are all elected officials.
Give me one.
You were just talked about by one of the
It's
speakers.
funny to see.
Oh, I was.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Well,
Some of the people
that is good.
it's not good.
Oh, okay, not good.
Give me a hard
Okay.
time.
Your pay.
Oh, okay, my pay. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's definitely.
15,000 or something like that.
I mean,
Yes,
I was
that's the
very
reason
happy
we
my
all.
sister-in-law made that.
We have a lot of
You do it for the
attorneys.
money.
and-
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a heck of a part-time job.
Hard but full.
Yeah, most of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and
Yeah.
we won't complain. We just do what we do for the overall outcome to better our community. You know, that is it. But we'll take a short break and we'll be back.
Okay, and the next person is scheduled soon?
Yes, the next
they don't
person is
have long
scheduled.
breaks.
Yeah,
They don't give them much of a break at all.
No.
About 5 minutes maybe, some kind of catch-up timing for everybody. It's been really fun to watch these interviews, actually. Like, there's so many qualified people.
Have you
honestly
seen-
doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You've
mean,
seen
it's
quite a
going to be
few.
easy for them to get a really strong board if that's what their intention is. And I'm just hopeful that that's what their intention is.
Well, how long a term will it be to serve?
The first one is actually just a one-year term.
Oh.
So that we wanted to be able to give people the opportunity to be part of the formation without having to give a 3-year commitment. And so I actually saw one person that said that she was like expressly only interested in serving for the first year because she wanted to be helpful in the formation, but that her long-term plan wouldn't really allow her to serve for 3 years. I don't know, honestly, how many people are aware that that's an option.
I think this is very unusual right now, this activism on the part of so many people.
Yeah, I think it's something that, we need to capitalize on.
Yeah. Are they planning to do kind of a rotating board, because you wouldn't want
Yeah, you
everybody to go
stagger it
at the
after,
same
exactly,
year.
yeah.
Okay,
So the
they're gonna do
first
1
year, part of
first
what,
year, and then-
part of what the board will do that first year is determine the staggering of the remainder and how that will fall. And I guess that'll partly depend on how many people are interested in serving just that 1 year too, so it'll be
Well, there's a
interesting
lot
to
of
see how that
candidates,
shakes out.
right?
There are a lot
80,
of candidates.
70, 80?
180 originally. Yeah, I think it's probably down in the 140s between
people that didn't show up.
That was next. Women's March, they had things happen at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people, well, some people probably didn't realize they were nominated if they were nominated by an organization. Some people.
She has
But then others, I think that there's a few people that had like moved out of the city or had taken a new job that wouldn't allow them the time. Yeah, and some people may just didn't understand the commitment initially until they saw the application.
Helps us move, you know.
Just the whole. Appreciate your leadership.
Oh, I said good morning, and it's the afternoon. Sorry, good afternoon.
2 o'clock, right on the nose, so we'll get started on time. And you are Darren Collins, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Collins, thank you so much for being here. I tell it to everybody, but thank you for taking the time out of your life and come down on a rainy day and to try to serve our community on the Community Oversight Board. I appreciate it. Did you receive the 3 questions that we're going to be asking you today?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to go through those 3 questions. We have 10 minutes. I'll ask 1, 2, 3. You can answer each one, and then after you answer each question, I'm sure some of these fine folks here to my left or the gentleman to my right will be wanting to ask you a question after you get through, okay? So we'll go ahead and get started. The first question is briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
The things that interested me in this board, I've been a Nashville native, born and raised, been here all of my life. I identify as a person from Antioch. That's where I spent the majority of my life.
All right.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Any McGavick grads? Okay.
Did you go to McGavick?
Yes.
You're in my district.
Oh, yeah. So I went to McGavick, graduated from there, and then I went to MTSU, majored in pre-law, and minored in African American Studies. Being a Nashville native, I've noticed that there's been a disconnect from the community and law enforcement for quite some time, pretty much ever since I can remember. And I think this board will serve the purpose of kind of bringing the two together. A lot of the times we look at law enforcement and the community as 2 separate entities. Law enforcement is the community is law enforcement. We have to bring the 2 together and make them one. I think that'll go a long way in improving Davidson County Metro.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The next question is please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Well, taking it back to my education, I am a pre-law grad from MTSU with a minor in African American Studies. A lot of my education was in a background in history, particularly civil rights history. And as anyone who's studied that knows, civil rights is a huge part of African American history, and it's a part of American history. African American history, I kind of hate the term because we kind of exclude it from the overall American history, but it's a big part of what we all have been through in this country, no matter what side of the fence you're on.
Thank you for that. And the third question is please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
My background in criminal justice and policing practices goes back to my education in history. I know that in this country, law enforcement hasn't always been fair to everyone. And law enforcement, like I said, it's been a separate entity in a lot of communities, not just Davidson County Metro. Everywhere across the country, it's been a separate entity. And I feel that to take this community to the next level and for us to all feel safer, we have to include law enforcement in the community.
Thank you so much. Does anyone on the committee have a question?
I do. I want to say thank you, and I appreciate your energy and the idea that you acknowledge that there may be some gaps, but there's some opportunities to bridge those gaps, and I think that's what this is for. So outside of what has been outlined of the responsibilities of the Community Oversight Board, what opportunities do you see for the board?
I see an opportunity for the board to, when I say bring the community and law enforcement together, I mean that at this point we hold our patrons and our citizens accountable for what they do. And I think in order to bring the two together, we have to hold law enforcement accountable as well. We have to hold the two accountable. So if there's any instance of, a questionable encounter with a patron in law enforcement, it needs to be investigated on both sides, for law enforcement and the patron, to see, what exactly went wrong in the encounter, if there was any wrongdoing on either side. That's what I really think that this Community Oversight Board will do, and it'll kind of bring us all together.
Bridge a gap.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have any other questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. You still on Keaton? Still on Keaton down there, Rayon?
Yes, I'm still on Keaton.
See the horse patrols the other day?
I didn't see the horse patrol.
We had the horse patrols out there in the village and Lakewood. So that was kind of neat. It was on Facebook.
What year did you graduate from McGavitt?
09.
09.
I ain't
Okay.
gonna tell you when I graduated.
That's what I was trying to get to, bro.
A long time ago.
So, Mr. Collins, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your willingness to serve, and that we love seeing young folks that are here, because we need some younger people to give it, give it some energy to, lift the board up. So we really do appreciate it.
And you have 4 minutes if there's anything else you want to share with us. You don't have to. But
Yeah, you don't have to leave. You can stay as long as you want. You can stay all day if you want.
I just want to thank you all for, it's a Saturday. I work for the state, so I work for the state of Tennessee. I'm a public servant. I know that you don't have to be here on a Saturday. I really appreciate you all doing this as well. It's very important to me, and I'm sure it's very important to you all as members of Davidson County.
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. We do appreciate it.
Thank
So,
you very, very much.
drive safely out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk downstairs for a minute.
All right.
We got a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. That's good stuff. Have you too.
Ladies, since y'all are here and y'all are watching, I just thought I'd tell you, we have 4 people, then we have a 10-minute break, then we have 1 person, then we have a 40-minute break, then we have 2 people. I don't know who set this schedule up, but that's what we've got. So,
I guess a lot of people dropped out.
either that, maybe some people dropped out, and we had some that maybe said they couldn't get here till at the last minute, so they put them at the very end, so I guess that's what happened. So.
Is this oversight board, will these people receive any pay or?
There's no pay. Almost like a council person, almost, not quite. We get a little pay, but
How will they be chosen?
I like it.
Tuesday night,
Are you using a scale? Rating scale?
each person, we're taking notes of each person, and then as a committee, we all will have to come up with who we thought was we've reviewed about 45 people in this committee.
But no tool for rating?
Well, the board has a requirement that economically disadvantaged areas of town, there has to be at least 4 people on the board from those areas, and so we have to separate them when we vote based on this group who in the economically disadvantaged areas, and then we'll only have 5 others. The mayor had 2 people, and he's already selected his 2 people. So it's kind of so we'll have different groups to choose from, and then hopefully Tuesday night, we have all 159 people to vote for. You can imagine you had to get 21 votes for each person, so it's going to take a long time for us to come to a...
Where did the number of people on the board and how they were represented, how was that arrived at?
The people that submitted the petition, this was a community petition. This did not come from not from the council. The community put this forward and they got it on the ballot the past election cycle.
So we don't know if they were using some tried and true method from another city?
So we know that they used, there's a couple different ones. So we had actually had it as legislation, right? So it came before our city council and it was voted down, right? So at that point, the same persons that were...
It was deferred. It wasn't voted. It wasn't voted.
It wasn't voted down? I thought it was voted down.
It was indefinite deferred.
Okay. Well, so it was an indefinite deferral. So they took the same guidelines and those same citizens that were working with those council members took it and they worked on it. And so they were looking at ones in Memphis and just different cities. And so took that and then saw which one would work best for Nashville. Because there's different ones out there, but you have to do kind of, I guess, a model that works for you and what you know you can get done, right? Because you might have the ideal, but it's like what will work, what can we get past, what's reasonable.
We had to get 15.
The disadvantaged neighborhoods, is that by zip code?
Yeah.
And that was predetermined before you?
It was economic. They did it on, it was in the legislation. It was actually listed on how, and they did it, the council office and our legal office determined based on census data.
Yeah, and the planning commission too.
And the planning commission,
yeah. So the planning commission pulled it.
There's a lot of thought into what actually went into that, so there's a whole lot of different things that go into that, so.
So it was the first.
Hello, Ms. Battle.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Hi. A little anxious, tell you that, a little nervous.
All right.
You are Miss Wanda Battle, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Just thank you for being in and your willingness to serve. We really appreciate that. Did you have received the 3 questions that you're going to be asked today? Is that
Yes,
correct?
are you going to ask them of me? Okay.
Yes. So what we're going to do, you have 10 minutes, and we're going to go through each question. You just answer. You take as long as you want within the 10 minutes. Any time that's left over, these nice folks will probably have some questions for you when you get through, okay?
And we don't bite. You can relax.
Yeah, really.
Not on that list. Okay.
We don't bite.
So let's go ahead and get started. First question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay, the interest is because, number one, I grew up in Nashville, and I've seen a lot of changes that's gone on. Change is inevitable, but I've seen a lot of changes here in Nashville. There seems to be, between me and people that I've spoken to, a lot of changes in neighborhoods, particularly mine. And I can't say it's good, bad, or indifferent, but in our neighborhood, there's a lot of gentrification. A lot of the people that I grew up with have lost their land. Some of them sold their land. The older people died, like my parents, and they were able to leave a will, and I have that home. But I consistently get these papers and postcards to send me, to say, do you want to sell your home? Do you want to sell your home? So that's kind of frustrating to continuously get that. I also am not getting I don't care for, I'm on Nextdoor, if you know what that is. And I don't care for the occasional papers that I get on there that say, there was a suspicious man. Okay, the suspicious person was going to see his grandparent. And that person's lived there as long as I have. I've been in South Nashville for 63 years. So I think I would be great not because I know everyone, because now I don't know everyone. And the neighborhood has changed in terms of when we were all there, people walked by and spoke. Now they walk by and don't speak, and they have a dog. And the only time, quite honestly, that they do speak is when they do have a dog. I have a dog. I'm sorry, I have a dog. So I have a lot of passion about my neighborhood and about humanity. I'm a registered nurse, and I really support Let's Get Together. When my mom and parents were living, we got together when some of the different cultures moved in. We got together for Christmas, and we found out that the neighbor had passed. Nobody knew it. I mean, his wife knew it, but nobody knew about them. So my mom started every Christmas having Christmas dinner, and the neighbors would come, but then other neighbors came and did not come. I live right next door to St. Eli Church, and they have something every year, but we don't see neighborhoods coming together. So that is why I think I would be great, because number one, I'm a nurse, I know a lot of people, and I know how to take care of people, and I get involved with what I can get involved with. So I think that might be
3.
Okay, thank you. Second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay, I thought about this. Equity issues, number one, could be several things. It could be social, it could be financial, it could be educational, it could be several things. But in terms of the culture that I grew up in, it would be equality amongst us all. And the thing is that, let's talk about educational. The schools, my grandson goes to what I consider a great school. I pay great taxes for that to happen. And, did I say grandson or son? My grandson. So, you know, the thing is that it would be wonderful if we treated everyone equally. In my lifetime, that has not really been the case. Now, I have friends that I'd like to say I treat equally or they treat me equally, but if I'm going to be honest, that's not, I'm sorry, that was making me feel like I sounded loudly. You know, I'd be lying if I say I am a biased person. You know, people are human. And, you know, we are not the best at, what I can say is I try to be as translucent as I can be. And that's what I do. What was the other question?
The last question is, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay. Well, policing justice. Well, policing policy. What I do every day, what I do every day is I am the statewide healthcare educator for TDOC, and I write policies. I write protocols for.
What is TDOC?
Oh,
City Department of Correction.
sorry. Yeah, so I work downtown here. And what I do is I write the protocols that the nurses follow across the state so that they can educate. That's one part of what I do, educate we don't call them inmates, we call them patients, so that they can learn. Because part of what they do, part of what they're supposed to be there, my thinking was, what we used to hear was, I haven't worked there but a year and a half, but what I always heard was that the patients were there to learn to be rehabilitated, not just punished. So when a person is rehabilitated, that means they get education. They learn crafts, they learn arts, they learn how to write, they learn how to read, they learn things. And so my job is to give out information for the nurses so that they can send that out. And I send a monthly topic and they teach it. And I'm talking about diabetes, COPD, I send out that. And then I also send out behavioral health. Okay. So, but what I have more. What was that question? Civil rights?
Criminal justice and policing.
Okay, that's good. Okay, and plus policing policy. Let's look at, maybe we could all together look at not racial profiling. Let's not look at giving bonuses. I don't know that it happens to police who at a certain time of the month stop people because, you know, there's racing, there's lights out. Not racing, but lights out, and stop them and get their tickets. So that would be something to just maybe look at.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
There was one more. Civil rights.
No, that's all three.
Yeah.
No, you did the civil rights. I did the civil rights.
Yeah. So you're good. You're good.
Wow.
You're good.
Wow.
So we have 1 minute. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us in the 1 minute you have left?
Yes, I grew up on Hillside Avenue, a house across from Charles Pruitt. Yeah. And I got involved then because he took some of the kids who wanted to go and help him with his political stuff. And Mansfield Douglas did the same thing. So I got involved early, like 10, 11. And then I went to TSU. And UT wanted TSU to be TSU.
Yeah.
So I remember marching down the street to do that, and that was just the beginning, because I have done a lot of things. I couldn't think, I didn't give myself a lot of credit for this, but I have lost a child by a gun, not by a police, but I have done a lot of grief therapy, taught low income, taught health care, and taught HIV/AIDS. I have been on several boards and done a lot of things for domestic violence, adults and children. Say what you will or won't, I teach things, and I've been on I have worked for community corrections and DUI.
Okay, well, it looks like our time is up. I want to thank you for coming in. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. And thank you for your
I got it. I did it in time. Thank
Yes,
y'all.
yes,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it. It was not nearly as bad as I thought. I hate when I just go all the way.
No, you're
Thank
fine.
y'all. It is nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you too.
Okay, do I get that tape? That's kind of a,
You can see it online.
It'll be online.
Oh, see it online. I thought you see it on TV. What?
On TV too, Channel 3.
Yeah, it'll be on TV.
You were just on television.
On the cover of the Rolling Stones.
I wish my mom and daddy could see it.
All right, bye-bye. Hi,
How are you doing? Miss Cheryl Tisdale, is that right?
Hi.
Thank you for coming in and your willingness to serve. We really appreciate you coming out on a rainy day. I know taking a lot of time out of your...
Thank you, sir.
So did you receive the 3 questions that the council office sent you, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. We have 10 minutes with you, and so I'm going to ask you the 3 questions and give you an opportunity to answer each question. And if we have any time left after the 3 questions, then these nice folks will probably ask you a couple other questions. So the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay, as I put on my paper, I don't know if y'all have the answers to that.
We do.
We have.
That's what they're all looking. If you see them looking at stuff, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah. And Greg, it's the 3 questions, and so also remember that we're televised.
Yeah,
And so and we're on the internet too, just so you'll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, basically, because the community does need an oversight board, they voted for it, and I want to work and help the city of Nashville, because we're growing, and you're not going to make everybody happy, but it's supposed to be a majority answer for it, and then we go with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay, basically I just turned 60, so 58, my father actually helped the people who were going downtown to sit on the counters. He trained them, and I asked him why didn't he do what he was supposed to do. He said, Cheryl, because I would have hit somebody, so he had to train the people. That's only the part of the civil rights I know, besides watching the films and seeing the brutality that went on with our country. Basically, that's all about that. William Tisdale.
William Tisdale.
Okay. And the third question, please describe your background, experience, or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Great, I'll start with this, I'll show you. This is my degree from Tennessee State University. Everybody signed this deed, but. I took a dialogue in diversity. Here's my certificate of completion, 2011.
Very good.
This is when I worked for Metro Schools. I got a 5-year certificate.
Thank you.
And you worked at my alma mater, McGavick?
McGavick, yes, I did. East High School, I graduated from. I also went to private schools. But I did do my 13 years of schooling and got my degree. I forgot the rest of the question.
Oh, that's okay, about criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay, and policing practices, the police officers are giving random warnings to the people. They're supposed to obey those laws. The people are supposed to obey them as well. Everybody's supposed to follow the rules. The problem of it is we circumvent behind the rules for whatever reason. Every time America makes a rule, they change it. For whatever reason, somebody circumvents behind it and want to do it their own way. Breaking the rules, I have no problem with people that want to do it, because that's how our country's made of. People that do that.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Tisdale?
Only if you have any recent, if you can tell us any recent involvement or how do you see the civil rights issues today or more recent?
More recently, it would be, well, I have to go back to before I graduated TSU, TSU had a sit-in. I wasn't part of it, but I did get interviewed on TV because they didn't like what I had to say. Because I went against the sit-in, because that's not how you get people to understand what's going on. What you do if you want to get them, you get them at the freeze. You cut their money off. And I told everybody, just don't buy anything in Tennessee. Go to a different state, bring your groceries back home, buy everything across the state line. That was my argument with it, so the news media didn't like that too much. It is what it is. As far as getting along with people, we still got homelessness, economic. My neighborhood is a little balance of a little bit of both poverty as well as people that are still working. I'm retired now. I did nursing, social work, was a case manager. I've been in all kinds of, and I still do, because when I see a person on the street, usually people give them money, but you shouldn't have. I have little packets of food, and I just give that. Most of the time I see them throwing in the trash can. Plus, I used to work for Room at the Inn many years ago. So,
maybe can you tell us what has your interaction been with the police and the community? How's your...
Basically, I had everybody I know that was on there, I think is retired. Interacting with them was like when they stopped my son years ago, right in front of the driveway at home. It was one-on-one, and the guy said he didn't have my son in the system, so he put him in the system. Basically was because I told him before he left, I put that license tag sticker on, and he forgot. And it was like 12 midnight, and he was just pulling in, and he pulled next door to the house that lives across from us, and he pulled back in, and that's why he pulled him over. And so he got out of the car and stuff, and then he called me from the phone, and I came outside, and I told him, he said, well, he's not in the system. I said, okay, fine. And I told him, I said, I'll take it downtown and pay the ticket or whatever, and that's what I did. That was my only thing, and besides them, pulling me over for speeding tickets many years ago. That's really my only interaction with them. I know a lot of them because I went to school with quite a few of them. Like I said, they're all retired.
What do you see the difference in the relationship of police and community 10 years ago versus now, in your opinion?
It's better because we now have, I think there are a lot of them on the streets now more so, and that's a lot because then you get to know somebody. You get to see them, their ways or whatever, if they had a good day or whatever. But basically every time I see Metro, regardless, like my church had Thanksgiving dinner for them or Christmas dinner, I don't remember which one it was, and that was the first time we even had one, and it was nice to, like I call them Metro Finest, they like that, and and basically years ago, I can tell you stories about what I heard when the suspect was put into the elevator downtown. In the elevator, they get beat up, and then they would prolong them before they get into their cells.
I've heard that.
The new story is I've heard there was a tunnel between here and over there, and stuff happened along the way, and Joe Casey time, I believe. Here and now, I haven't heard too much about the sheriff. I like Sheriff A. Thomas got arrested, so I know he got in a little trouble. But he was a good guy. He was a good guy.
Ms. Tisdale, can I just thank you for coming in?
Yes,
And
yes.
you're an East High School graduate. My parents are East High School. My grandparents are East High School. So anybody coming from East Nashville, I like a lot. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in and being so
Thank you. You have an awesome day.
Thank you so much. Was it Ms. Teaka Virtue, our next candidate? Is that what we got here?
Yes.
She said, I didn't get no.
Yeah.
She wore a TSU jacket today.
Yeah.
Always represented.
Always represent.
I mean, that ain't Belmont stuff.
See, put it on.
I live on campus.
Hello. How are you? Is Miss Freeman?
Ms. Freeman, is it Tandra or Tandra?
It's Tandra.
Tandra Freeman. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your willingness to serve on the board, because we know it's taken a lot of time just to get to this point, so we always appreciate that. So, and thank you for coming out. Looks like the sun's popped out a little bit out there, so it's getting a little better.
Yeah.
So, did you get the 3 questions that the office sent you? Okay. And so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to ask you those 3 questions. We've got 10 minutes with you.
Okay.
We'll just go through each question, and you can just answer each question, and then if there's time left over, these nice folks will ask you a question, okay?
A different question.
Yeah, just whatever might come to mind. So the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay, so I want to be a part of creating an oversight board that is fair, effective in their policing policies, also a board that helps to build a better relationship with the citizens of the community, build trust between the police officers and the citizens. And for me, I want to serve on the board because I feel that I have a lot of experience in different areas. Mental health is one of my areas. I work as a school counselor. I am a clinical trauma specialist, so I work with various groups of people. I was born in a distressed zip code in Memphis, Tennessee, and then moved to a distressed zip code in Los Angeles, California, so I'm very familiar with that community, which I know a lot of the incidents that have happened have come out of distressed zip codes, so I'm very familiar with that population. And then also I have had some dealings with, police officers as I work with my domestic violence area as well.
Thank you so much. The next question, which is please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. So, as I mentioned in the first question, I am a school counselor. I've been doing that for 11 years. The school where I currently work, we represent 72 nations and 68 languages at my school. So it's very diverse. And we've had to deal with some issues at my school with discrimination, sexual assault, sexual abuse, neglect, all of those areas. And I've had to work with families. I've had to work with the students.
Pardon, I'm sorry.
And those families, to make sure that no one's civil rights are being violated. I've had to work with Metro Legal. I am a 504 coordinator at my school, so I'm very familiar with that. I have to make sure that the students who have a 504, their civil rights are not being violated, and that the teachers and everyone are following the 504 to the T. So I'm very familiar with it.
Thank you so much. And the third question we have for you is, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay. So as I've mentioned a little bit, so I work part-time with victims of domestic violence, and I help them to get an order of protection. So I have to work with the victims, the police officers, the commissioners, as we help these individuals understand their rights, make sure they're getting everything that they need as they go through the process of
filing charges, if they need resources, just everything. So I'm very familiar with policing and the practices and the law as it relates to not just domestic violence, but crimes in general.
Thank you so much. That was nice, to the point, succinct, and clear. And we don't get a lot of that sometimes, so I appreciate you doing that. So,
How many minutes was that?
She went to Belmont, my alma mater.
Okay.
Good job.
Oh, nah.
I know Miss Council Lady Gilmore has a question because she always does. So,
I do. So thank you so much for being here. And so I wanted to ask you, what other opportunities do you see for the Community Oversight Board? The guidelines have already been set out, so I'm not talking about the guidelines and the expectations as it relates to that, but just other opportunities outside of those that have already been determined.
Okay, so that the Oversight Board can participate in or do?
That what they can do outside of what's already been determined.
Right. I think training is so important. Training, education, help it, to bridge that gap. Because I feel like there's a gap there. There's it's a disconnect when it comes to police and the community, how the community sees police officers, and I think that needs to be changed. And I think that comes with education and training. So there needs to be a lot of education and training, and also individuals need to see police officers not just when they're arresting someone. So police officers need to be seen more in a positive light. So training.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Do you say, as far as the relationship of police and the community, do you see a difference over the last 10, 12 years?
I do. I see a difference, not just with police officers, just the country as a whole, how things have changed. I know with Nashville, I've been here over 30 years now. And I've seen it change. And as the city grows, there are going to be more issues. And so we need to address that. Hopefully we can get in front of it. It's always better when you get in front of something. Sure. But I have seen a difference. I feel like we're having more and more incidences of things, that we're seeing in the news that are not so favorable.
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Unless there are any other questions, I just want to thank you for coming down and your willingness to serve again on, it was a rainy morning and you come down here and all the time that you've spent in this process. So you seem like a very good candidate. So I want to thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You
We
guys have a
appreciate
great
you.
day.
You too.
Okay, no more questions? I'm ready. Let's roll.
Hey, we got 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If you want to say something, feel free. We're here. So
Yeah.
I don't think I have any questions. I just want you guys to ask me some more questions.
Maybe you can do a closing statement or something.
I didn't have the thing. What part of town you live in?
I live in Antioch.
Okay.
Best part of the city.
Is that the best part of the city?
I don't
Those
know
two
about
would think
that.
is the best part of the city. for sure.
Not when it comes to driving in the morning.
Or driving home. in the
Yeah,
evening.
that's the worst. I mean,
Yeah.
at least in the morning, I kind of get ahead of it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So I guess my closing statement is I feel like I'm a very good candidate. I have a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas. I am a negotiator. I use my counseling skills. I use my trauma specialist certification all the time because with these incidences, it's trauma on both parts. Trauma for the police officer, trauma for the victim. And so that's something that I use every day. And so that's what I would bring is calm. I can be neutral, which I think is very important.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And you have a terrific rest of your Saturday.
I'm gone. I'm gone this time.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Drive safely.
The sun is out.
Yeah, it makes you feel better. Come on.
Teaka, was she your... you didn't know her, did you, Teaka? She was good, though. I liked her. She was Very clear and precise.
Antioch is huge.
I know. I didn't know which district. I mean, it wasn't your district, so.
Yeah, Antioch could be like its own city.
What's really strange is that Hermitage and Antioch meet over there on the back of the lake. You know what I mean? And you don't know what's back there.
From one county line to the next.
Yeah, you got to go all the way around into Wilderness to get over to. It's strange how it is.
Well,
People say I live in Antioch. I'm like, okay, where?
And it's funny to me because people that don't live in Antioch have this very weird idea about it, but we that live there, we know it's safe, it's a great place to live, people get along, but then you watch TV and you think that it's a different place.
I lived in what used to be called the Arbors, which is right there at Bell Road and 24. Right there at Bell Road and 24. I was going to MTSU, so this tells you how long I would be quiet. But when I was going there, I-24 was still 2 lanes, and they had just started widening. You can imagine. So I drove all the way out there to Murfreesboro every day from there and back. Oh, that traffic was awful, man. Awful.
I remember when 65 south was 2 lanes. Yeah. Hello.
What's going on,
brother?
How are you doing? Mr. Beshir, correct?
Yes, sir.
How do you pronounce your first name? I want to make sure it's right.
I get Kayo a lot, but it's pronounced Kayo.
Kayo, that's what I thought. So it's Kayo Beshir, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
all right, thank you for being here with us today and your willingness to serve on this board. So it's really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
You received the questions from the council office? Okay, so you know the 3 questions. We have 10 minutes with you here, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask you the 3 questions. You just answer each question, and if we have any time left over, we will ask you a few questions, and we're harmless, I promise. No one here bites. Maybe Fabian a little bit close. He's close to you, so watch out. So the first question. Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Yeah, for sure. Before I answer the question, I just definitely want to, give a couple of shout-outs. I know I have only 10 minutes, but a huge shout-out to everybody that, partake on getting us to where we at and working on implementing the Community Oversight Board and getting us where we are. You guys that set all these up and, everybody that scheduled all these. But, yeah, so I wanted to first give a huge shout-out to everybody that got us here, and that's the reason why I'm here sitting in front of you guys. Well, I would like to start by emphasizing the the Community Oversight Board has long been overdue. The main ask for the Community Oversight Board is accountability and transparency within the Metro Nashville Police Department. The board is not the police department, but instead an alternative to policing. So the implementation of this avenue will only foster trust and transparency between the police and the public. Metro Nashville Police Department does not have an avenue to file complaints about police misconduct other than the police department itself. So to me, what makes a great board is a board that consists of a balanced group of leaders representing the Metro community. And for me, I believe I am that leader. My interest in serving on this board is ultimately to be the voice for a large community that I'm afraid could be pretty much left out of the conversation. And this is a conversation those impacted at higher levels cannot afford to not be part of the whole conversation. So my representation on the board will allow me to be the voice for the youth and the immigrant communities. My role will also be the voice for the police by filling in the wide gap that exists in the community as a liaison in our community so we can strengthen our community. So, many people may say, well, Kayo, you're too young, you don't have experience with policing, but, I feel like the Community Oversight Board has been designed to where it's funded so where I can partake in trainings and, become, ready and prepared to serve on the board. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
The second question is please describe your background and or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Yeah, for sure. My background is that I was born in Ethiopia. Due to the upheavals in my country at the time, my family fled to Kenya and Uganda. We finally sought refuge where we were connected with our father here in Nashville. I became a U.S. citizen in 2012, and I attended Apollo Middle School. I attended Antioch High School, and Middle Tennessee State University, respectively. I believe my experiences have molded me to become the man I am today. However, being a product of Metro and Metro systems has definitely influenced the leader that I have become. Today, I'm a proactive leader in my community that has worked on both civil rights and equity issues. My passion stems from my values of actively advocating for and issues and causes that include poor children and my immigrant community in Nashville that I'm a proud member of. I am currently working as my current position is I'm a Melkus Justice Fellow at the Tennessee Justice Center. So here my role allows me to serve as a client advocate and provide representation to Tennessee's most underserved members of the community and you know, helping them navigate the complex healthcare system that we have in the state. I'm also a proud member of Tennessee Immigrants' Right Refugee Coalition, a local group that works to advocate on behalf of and mobilize communities to stand up for immigrants' rights. I'm also the founder of the Oromo Youth of Nashville, mentorship youth group for Oromo teens and others from the African diaspora, interested in pursuing higher education while promoting their identity and their cultural roots from back home. I'm also the UNICEF community lead here. So my role in all these engagements have allowed me to advocate on behalf of those in need. You know, Nashville has an admirable history, and with having this implementation, I'm definitely, you know, excited to see how we can continue.
Thank you. And the last question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Yeah, for sure. As a recent graduate, my studies, local involvement, and community engagements has definitely introduced me to the practice of criminal justice. I definitely may not have 40 years of experience like many of the people that came before you guys and worked in policing, and but my own lived experiences with the police in my community have been I think enough to question and speak on police practices. When I envision police, usually I think of a group of people that guard the safety of the general public and the safety and, you know, reflect the priorities of the people that they serve. I personally do not believe that there are bad cops personally, but I do believe there are bad systems that entice cops to be bad cops. So bad cops, therefore, are products of bad policies. So living in Antioch, where a large population are members of, you know, color, we coincidentally see and encounter police more frequently than, you know, more frequently than I've seen in many other communities. I've went to school in Murfreesboro, so I don't feel like it's the same. Majority of the patrols are to complete drug busts and, you know, tickets for minor traffic violations and things like that. But many in my community, I can testify that we find them to be slow at responding whenever there's real danger and, you know, in those kind of moments of crisis. So police in many of our communities are nothing but faceless individuals with an intimidating presence is what I think, hence unhealthy relationships that, you know, teaches us to inflexibly fear the police, I believe, you know. So today our Metro Nashville Police Department has no accountability and transparency between those serving and those served. So we lack an independent avenue where citizens can submit complaints with confidence that they will be addressed. So for me personally, I can just talk about my most recent incident is that maybe about a month ago, I called the police. I live in Antioch, of course, and my car was broken into, and I called the police. Of course, I can't call the 911 number, so I called the non-emergency number. 36 hours later is when the police showed up, and even when they did show up, they didn't take time to look at fingerprints or, you know, point out at the cameras and look into those. So for me, you know, I've always been hesitant about calling the police, and I mean, I've not been in many situations like many of my friends may have been, other than a couple of speeding tickets. But with just those kind of situations, it just kind of shows that, you know, we need something like this that can be a voice for those kind of people. So I feel like having a representation like myself on this board will definitely a voice for the youth, the immigrant communities, and those that definitely cannot afford to be left out of the conversation, so, yeah.
Thank you very much for answering those.
Sure.
We've only got a minute left. Is anybody have a quick question, or is there anything?
I was just wondering, I mean, I'm a new American myself, so growing up in another country,
Sure.
I have to relearn to love my police here. So it's a different environment. So do you, you probably have a different perspective than most people have about policing on how we can get by when there is no framework to
Yeah.
make sure that. So if you could go a little bit more on that, that'd be great.
I mean, definitely. I mean, for example, I've had enough travels in the 23 years I've been alive. I've made sure I've traveled a lot. But, growing up back in, for example, in Kenya, where police may not carry guns or are not as intimidating, but whenever they pull you over, that, just like they do in Mexico, if you have money in your pocket, they'll definitely take that. So for me, I feel like there's such a huge opportunity coming to America and seeing the potential that the police has, and we've got a long ways to go, but I'm really excited. So. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Right. Thank you. Right.
Right.
We're gonna take that.
It is so amazing.
Do we turn this off during the break?
It does not stop during the break, even if it's just the light, it's not controlling the camera.
That's good to know.
So it will
So
continue
we
to go.
won't say anything.
We leave it on there?
Well, I just,
Get out of here.
I thought for somebody that grew up in where the police can kidnap you and beat you up and kill you without any, it's,
Yeah, this is. Yeah, people come here, they're like, "Oh, this is great."
well, and I was thinking about what this lady was saying about running away and the trauma. I mean, when I first got stopped here, I got out of my car because that's what you do in Argentina. The police was like, no,
get back in the car. Get back in the car.
that you do that you don't
That's
know.
an aggressive move here. They look at it.
Yeah, you don't get out of that car.
That didn't work.
I know. Well, I learned that, believe me.
You learned that the hard way.
So like that, there may be other reasons why people do things that the police may not know about it.
That's like when I was down on Honduras. First night I was there, they were shooting guns outside the hotel. I go, what's going on? They said, oh, guns are way away.
Yeah, that's fine. That's my score.
They do whatever they want.
Nobody has it.
Right, yeah. Well, I think too.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Sometimes I wasn't here the whole time. So I did that. Yeah. And you see, okay. Yeah. They won't come as long. Yeah. They here without us.
Yes, he will be here. He will be, yes. Anyone.
What's 3 o'clock?
3:30.
Okay.
Is the next person in? Thanks for being
Oh,
here.
they have a long break. They have a long break at 3:10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for being here. You guys are doing an amazing work. We're happy to help.
How we get a long break? I didn't know.
I told them they would be happy about that.
I gotta go about 10:30. I'm done. Why don't we have that big long break? I have some questions. I mean, 310 to 350 for what?
I have no idea. I guess the people couldn't come. They gave them, I don't know if they called in. That's a long time to wait. We got about 40 minutes.
So when they made this schedule, this was before they made the change. Correct. Got it. So then so room one is going much longer than this. This one actually has
Jackson
a long
has not
break.
checked in yet.
Well, no, this schedule has room one stopping at 3. But that's not. Oh, yes, right. We still in. This one, after this interview at 3, that's supposed to be happening, I guess now. There's a break. For 40 minutes. And then it picks up with just the last 2.
Oh, so maybe she must have came early because she walked in here. But
Who?
She was
This Jackson?
I'm not sure I'm not sure her name. I don't know her. But she's a real tall lady with an afro. Who's standing outside. I thought she was next.
Gotcha.
Okay.
If she doesn't come, I mean, they won't have another interview until 3:50 in here, so we need to go to another room probably to observe.
But
It's 3:01.
But one is the only one that's still going after that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we will all have to pack in there, basically.
Yep.
Ms. Teaka Jackson is not here yet. So if she does not show up, we've got like 50 minutes
Right to the next
to
interview.
the
That's
next
what we
one.
were just
Y'all
talking
need to
about.
go look at another
No, I
room.
think it's a much longer break for the next one. The next one is at 3:50.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like 50 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Because it's 3 o'clock right now, so. We've only got 2 left after this one.
Okay, well, I'm going downstairs then.
What are you gonna do, to outside to the thing march?
You know, the president is getting ready to make an announcement right now.
Who is?
The president.
Oh.
He's, I hope that he finishes this craziness of the shutdown. All right.
I don't know if Metro 3 wants to sit there and show anything.
For the people watching, the next person will be here at 3:50, so nothing will happen here for 50 minutes.
Should I turn off the in-session light?
Yeah.
We got 50 minutes.
And it's still being recorded.
I know it's recorded, but.
I'll just turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
Sorry. Sir, we really do appreciate that.
Yes.
You received the 3 questions from the council office, correct? So we've got 10 minutes with you, so what I want to do is just ask you the 3 questions and let you answer them. We'll go through them, and if there's any time left over after the 10 minutes, we will let you answer some questions from the group, okay? So the first question is, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
So the reason that I wish to serve on the Community Oversight Board is like everyone else. I'm a resident of Nashville, Tennessee, and I was disheartened with what has happened with the 2 individuals and the police officer. And so watching that really just kind of, not only did it dishearten me, it surprised me. I didn't like the negative connotation that brought upon the police department, and I felt like I needed to serve. I felt like there was something that I need to do to bridge the gap between the community as well as the police department. I feel as though that there is a lack of trust, transparency, as well as accountability. And my hope is that with being on this board, that I could work with other individuals on the board to just kind of bridge the gap and bring the community and the police force back together. I don't believe that it has anything to do with race. I don't believe that it has anything to do with political party. I don't believe that it has anything to do with gender. I think it really has something to do with the community and the police department basically coming together, having a clear understanding of each other, so we can all just kind of work together. So something like what happened with Mr. Clemens and Mr. Hambrick never happens again, or with any other individuals.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Yes. As an African-American woman, I am currently faced with civil rights issues as well as equity issues. The unfortunate reality of it is. However, I feel that there's a lot that has been done. There is a lot that has transpired, that has changed, but there's still more that needs to be done. My community involvement, as well as me just being current with what is happening with the recent economic and social things going on within the world, that just makes me privy to what is going on.
Thank you very much. And the last question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Yes, my educational background is in criminal justice, as well as my professional background. I work in the legal field, so I have the background with education as well as my profession, but then also me just being a civilian. I've encountered the police officers, I thank God, I haven't been in the criminal justice system. However, I've worked hand in hand with the criminal justice system with my profession, so I kind of know how the procedures and the policy works with that.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. I have 2 questions. I was looking congratulations on your award. So we're over here reading your bio, too, just so you know. We're listening intently and we're reading. So I'm reading and I'm listening.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to do one follow-up question, and then there's one question that I've just been asking everyone. So when you said that you believe that the incidents that happened, it wasn't tied to gender, race, or did you say economics too?
I did not. I said gender, race, and political.
Okay, yes. So could you just explain that more?
Yeah, I feel as though with the Community Oversight Board, there is this big elephant and umbrella, and a lot of people feel is that people that want to serve on this board are against the police. For myself, that is not the issue. I don't believe that police officers are bad. I believe that there are people, unfortunately, that are just not dealt the happy card that some are. So they're bad people, not bad police. With that being said, also, some individuals may feel that when you want to be on this board, that in particular, it's just the African American community that you want to serve in regards to making certain that their voice is heard. For myself, that is so, but also it's not just about politics for me. It's not about race. It's not about gender. I wouldn't want anything like that to happen to any individual that falls within that umbrella. So for me, this all stems from those 2 individuals that happen to be African American men. And I'm not naive to know that there is an issue, and there is an issue that surrounds African American men and women within this community and within the world, and there's something definitely going on with that, and there is a disconnect. However, for myself, I want to try to get to the root of it and see the bigger picture, and I want to listen to the police officers, I want to listen to the community, and just kind of find out what is going on.
So you don't think it's race? I'm trying to clear. You think it is race, or you don't think it is?
I do think it's race. I think that there is a race-related issue. Definitely so.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And then the second question is one that I've asked, I think, almost all of the candidates. if I haven't asked, I don't think it's just because the time is running out. So outside of the guidelines that have been provided of what the Community Oversight Board's responsibilities are, what opportunities do you see for the board?
Like I said, I think that the board, I think this is an excellent thing because it involves the community. So many people feel like they're not heard. So when you put community and you pick different individuals within the community, it makes people like myself feel like that I too have a voice. Of course, you can't. We would love for everyone to be able to serve on this, but I think in regards to where do I see it, I see that there is a bridge between politics and the community. There is a bridge between the police officers and the community. I think that as an individual that is in the community, we sometimes don't see all that goes on behind whatever's happening. And so for myself, I'm also kind of like that voice to be able to let the community know, listen, our politicians are working to try to help us do what we need to do to bridge the gap between the police and the community. So for me, myself, I see it just kind of opening that conversation and bridging that gap between, as I said, and I probably sound repetitive, but you know when you're passionate, you just keep speaking on a certain platform.
So, yeah, can I do a follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much for being so transparent. So do you feel like before maybe the implementation of this board that a lot of people feel like their voices here in Nashville, or just, I just can't, you're here. So do you feel like prior to this that your voice wasn't heard?
To a certain degree, yes, but I don't feel like that anyone is at fault for that. I just feel like that we're not there doing the committee boards and all of these different boards. So although there's possibility that we could come to certain things, but I do feel like that there is a sense of your voice is not being heard, and I feel like that is one of the reasons this committee was brought upon, and that's why so many people in Nashville decided collectively to vote on this committee, because they felt like that there was a need for our voices to be heard.
Mm-hmm. And that this is an opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. And I'm just asking for
yes,
clarity.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's why we had so many candidates. Never before have I known so many citizens to be engaged from so many different backgrounds. So I think that that's really awesome.
So, what do you see the difference in the last, say, 50 years between relationship of police to the community as it is now?
I think that I will say social media plays a big influence. I think there were a lot of things that were happening that we were not privy to. We weren't privy to because it wasn't out there. And with social media, it's transparency. It brings a sense of transparency. I think the difference between now and then, transparency, communication, I think people are opening up that dialogue. I think at one point, people were scared for whatever reason. It was that umbrella and people just didn't want to talk about it. People don't like to talk about things that make them uncomfortable. And unfortunately, this is something that makes people uncomfortable, but it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, you work in a law firm. So
How do you, don't say it, but that's my passion. My passion is to serve, and just for me, even to get, yeah, well, that's a whole nother conversation. If we had 10 more minutes, that is on the agenda as well.
Thank you so much. Really don't. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your transparency and your articulation of the.
And he's telling me to wrap up, so I'm telling you we got to wrap up. But again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'm a person of time, so the 10-minute, I totally apologize, and I
No, that's okay.
You're fine. You're fine.
Thank
Yeah, no
you so
worries.
much.
The vice mayor came in and let us know that there was a mix-up and to make sure you had your full 10 minutes, so we were
Thank you so
fine.
much. Have a great
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. No worries, no worries.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, the vice mayor came in and said make sure she had her whole 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine. It's no worries. No worries.
Break till 3:50.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm doing well. We're waiting for another. There's one. We got one more coming. I just want to make sure everybody was here. So I don't like to start.
You did a good interview.
Good to see you.
You're the next to last one, so I'm going to give our. If we run over a minute or two waiting on somebody, I don't feel bad about it. So. Yeah. Ma'am, could you shut that door for us? Ma'am, could you grab that door? Thank you.
Well, I will do everything I can to get you all out of here as soon as possible.
No, take up your 10 minutes.
You're going to get your 10 minutes. Don't worry. I'm going to make sure.
Look here.
All right, so we've got 10 minutes with you, and we have 3 questions. Did you receive those 3 questions in the mail or emailed?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So first off, I tell everybody this, but I really do want to thank you for being here and spending your time involved in this process, because it is a timely process, as we are all aware. And I know you know, and you have to get ready for this, and it's a nerve-wracking experience. You're on television, like we're on television right now, and you got to, you know, we're going to ask you questions, and you got to come. So you have the list of questions. What I'm going to do, we have 10 minutes. I'm going to give you the 3 questions. You just answer each question, and after you answer each question, if we have time left, we might ask you a question too, but we don't bite. So so let's get started. Number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay. I first became interested in the Community Oversight Board because although you have a very diverse set of candidates, in order for the board to be successful, I feel like you have to have the diversity of the entire city and all of the voices of the city. And I didn't see anyone who was specifically speaking to the 23-year-old and younger group, which is a group that I have advocated for over 20 years. I think that's important specifically now because sadly so much of that group comprise both our victims and perpetrators of a lot of our crime here in the city.
Okay. Thank you very much. The second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. In regards to civil rights, I am proud to say that I'm in my 7th term as the advisor for the NAACP Youth Council. I've also served on the executive committee for approximately the same amount of time. So, of course, I have not only a strong familiarity, but I actually not only talk the talk, but walk the walk in regards to civil rights. In terms of equity, a lot of my passion, as some of you all may be aware of, is education, where we still have a big deficit, which has a direct correlation in regards to pretty much why we're all in the room today. And of course that work is primarily with Metro Schools, both as the former chair of the Parents Advisory Council for the district and the outgoing MMPS representative for the State Department of Education for the State Parent Advisory Council.
Thank you very much. And the third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay. In regards to criminal justice and policing practices, I reflect to one of the things that I'm most proud of with the NAACP Youth Council. 3 years ago, we started forums in partnership with both Metro Nashville Police Department, Metro Council, and Metro Schools in regards to a twofold. First of all, students' rights, in regards to inside the schools and their interactions with SROs, which are school resource officers. And the second part, how to successfully navigate a traffic stop remaining a routine one. And we had a very candid conversation. We included the community in that in regards to, we had officers from the traffic division to speak in terms of speeding and, distracted driving. We had representatives to speak to what it would take to actually become a police officer. And what that looks like. And then, of course, we had officers that spoke directly to the things that can and cannot and can go wrong in regards to a traffic stop, and what you should do to ensure that your rights are protected, but also that the officer's rights are protected as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Lanier?
I will ask Ms. Lanier. Good to see you, and thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you, what is it that you have personally, and not with the perspective of the guidelines that are already written down, but what is that one thing that you feel your character, your persona, could bring to this board that can surpass, that makes you different from every other constituent, every other person that comes forward to meet with us during this period?
The thing that comes to mind is something that I have been accused of many times, and that is reflective of Shirley Chisholm. I'm unbossed and unbought. And I say that because I'm used to being in the hot seat in regards to my transparency and my fairness.
Okay. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Fabian, Eric, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I really thank you for your time and offering yourself up to serve. And I really enjoyed this time and listening to what you've had to share. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, we appreciate your willingness to serve and the time you've taken. So thank you very much. And if you need anything else, I'm sure we can help you in any way possible. So,
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you all for your time and for your service and diligence in doing this.
All right.
very much.
Thank you much. You have a great day.
Of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Every day above ground is a phenomenal.
Yeah,
day.
phenomenal.
I thought it was going to be sunny. Now it looks like it's clouding up again.
Yeah, it's
so I don't know what's
clouded up,
going
clouded up, clouded up, clouded up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
I
coming out.
appreciate
Really,
it.
thank you. Yeah, really, thank you.
I'll get you over here. So you won't have to walk all the way around? All right, see you later.
No, I got to go. My son's birthday party is at 5.
They'll have that out front. Yeah, they'll do that.
I'll talk to you.
All right? Okay. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
One more person?
I think so.
I'm doing the best I can. So. Well, I know that I keep saying this, but it's amazing all the candidates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We really need to find a way to keep them engaged.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody sitting here has seen some of the candidates we have. We have so many good candidates.
That's
It's
what the
just
young lady was saying.
amazing.
She said she feels like this is the first time that the people or the citizens of Nashville are really getting heard. And I said, yeah, I believe you because this is the most time we've had the most participation in anything from the people or the citizens.
It's from all over the city. I mean, just all over the city.
Well, you know, we see when we run for office that some people lose and then they give up and they
stop.
Then it's again, it's somebody that is passionate about the city and then they stop getting engaged. And this is, I want them to not to feel that this is some kind of a failure or anything. It's just like with so many good candidates, you gotta choose the.
That's why we gotta come up with another something.
One of the things that I do want to point out is that from the interviews on how many converts that we have had from other states and cities that live here in this area now, especially a lot of New York. Yeah, so we see it.
You know, I've lived here 23 years. I feel like an old timer.
Yeah, that's. Hey, I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Yeah,
so, Lady Berkeley, would you like to sit at the table?
Yeah, we've only got one left, but you're more than welcome to sit with us.
Yeah, you can sit over there.
Yeah.
I appreciate your interest in ours as well.
Our little group.
I want to know as many of these candidates.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, you can
Because
sit
we have to, we all have to come up with it.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad to know our problem is we got too many good ones.
Yeah, a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
A lot of good candidates, yes.
We really need to figure this out. I mean, I just will hate for all of them to stop getting engaged.
Yeah.
This is
the process, yeah.
I was even thinking maybe creating some kind of an advisory board or some kind of a group that can continue providing.
I mean, this process is for the first year.
Yeah.
So this group will figure out, yes, what the process is for the next year,
But I've enjoyed even just meeting and listening, even if I knew the people, just hearing more about their stories.
I love your questions. I mean, just, it's been good.
I love this,
And we have one other candidate that is visiting with us. She couldn't leave.
Yeah, she came back. And so too, so we have.
I'm coming back to cheerlead.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. Hello. All right. This is Mr. Hughes.
Hello.
Is it Hughes?
Hughes, yes, sir.
Just want to make sure. This is Timothy Hughes.
You can take that chair and use it if you want. Put my bag in the floor.
Here we go.
Great.
Mr. Hughes, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yes.
So we have 10 minutes with you, and we want to thank you first and foremost for your willingness to serve. We've thanked everyone, but it really is a time-consuming process, and we appreciate everything that you've done to be where you are right now. So we have 10 minutes. We have 3 questions. Did you receive the 3 questions that you're going to have to answer in the email or mail? Okay, great. So we're just going to go through these 3 questions, and then if we have any time after the 3 questions, you might get some questions from one of the council members sitting here at the table, okay?
Understood.
All right. The first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
If I could just take a moment, personal privilege. I know that we're at the end of the day. It's been a very long day, but I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to be able to speak with you today and to present my case for why it is that I believe that I should be on the Community Oversight Board. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we're just a couple of days away from the commemoration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy. And so with the work that happened here in the Nashville movement and so much effort that went into the creation of this Community Oversight Board, I'm thankful to have the opportunity to be able to participate in this process. It's indeed a great honor. And so one of the reasons why I'm interested in serving on the Community Oversight Board has a lot to do with the fact that as a Baton Rouge native, I grew up there and came here to Nashville for college. Having the opportunity to be influenced by educators and thinkers at Fisk University, it was almost a part of our DNA that if you're a student that comes from Fisk University or that graduates from that institution, you go out and you serve. And so upon the creation of the Community Oversight Board, it gave me an opportunity to see an opportunity that I could do something to provide service to the larger Nashville community. And so that's one reason. But also, my work and my involvement with Gideon's Army, which was one of the organizations, are primarily one of the most active organizations specifically talking about issues related to policing in Nashville as it relates to the Driving While Black report. And my involvement with that gave me the inspiration, motivation to want to be involved on this particular issue of policing. The need for greater community oversight is something that indeed the people of Nashville have spoken pretty loudly about. And it would be a great opportunity and a wonderful responsibility to be able to serve in that capacity.
Thank you very much. Second question, please describe your background and or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Well, in many ways, living and growing up in a family of people who were involved in various areas of civil and civic engagement and civil rights is a part of the educational experience for me. Attending Fisk University kind of continued that education, but the involvement in connection to the civil rights movement and those processes. But I think it's important too to articulate and connect the civil rights movements and the sit-ins and the activity that happened in the 1960s to what is happening today. Nearly 70 years ago, there were discussions around the idea of community oversight and the need for greater involvement and connection with community. And so when that was happening in the 1960s, here we are nearly 70 years later with the opportunity presented to us to have a community oversight board. And so in a lot of ways, that connecting of those two movements together and the continuation of those same thought processes is really important for us to understand the value and the importance of those things. As it relates to equity, my involvement with and connection to various parts of the community, being able to have credibility with those communities and those constituencies is very important. Having lived in and grown up and gone to school in 37208, which is a zip code that has now gotten a great deal of coverage as it relates to individuals who were formerly incarcerated. Having a connection to that community and seeing the value of the people in that community and their importance and their desire to want to have responsible and accountable relationships with police officers, but also an understanding of the fact that equity is about making sure that those who are at the bottom also have opportunity, that we don't become a community where those who are at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of access and opportunity are forgotten about. And so it's important for the Community Oversight Board to have individuals who have connection with that community and can understand those issues.
Thank you very much. And third question, last question of the day. Please describe your background, experience, and or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
As far as criminal justice and policing practices are concerned, my family members and relatives of mine, I myself am not a police officer or law enforcement. I'm not a trained attorney, but my father had a career in law enforcement in the military. He retired after 25 years in the Air Force and also served in law enforcement. Both my grandfathers on my mother and father's side were sheriff deputies and members of the military. I also have relatives and friends of mine who I am close to, and relationship to Gideon's Army as well. We have advisors and police officers and so forth, and so I have an appreciation for and an understanding of the issues that many police officers face. But I also think it's important that we have an understanding of how trauma impacts communities and police officers in particular as well. The very difficult job that they do is highly stressful and can be very traumatic for police officers. And so if we're going to talk about having trust and equitable responsibility and connection to communities, we have to understand the value and the importance of looking out for good police officers when they're doing their job and the impacts that are happening on their lives, but also in the communities that are being policed. We have to look out for those who are doing the protecting and the serving, and also those who are being protected and served.
Thank you very much. Very well spoken. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I was going to say a comment or two on some of these candidates I know personally, and I just feel like Mr. Hughes is just underselling himself when it relates to equity. He's done a lot of work recently as it relates to registration when we had the last couple of elections, and a lot of people don't realize that's a part of equity too, though, when you go out to underserved, or I shouldn't say underserved, distressed communities, and you bring it to the people and talk about the importance of getting persons registered, or even working with Gideon's Army. That's equity, right? So you are doing a lot of equity work, and I don't want you to think that you're not. You don't have to pull from your parents, right? And those are things that happen specifically here in Nashville, right? And those are real issues when we saw Jacquees Clemens get killed, and then you have a group of people led by Rashida and others that come together and put together a community report, right?
And the data from that report was collected from community conversations and listening sessions, which I think is really going to be important for the Community Oversight Board to do, to have their pulse on what's happening with the community, listen to that information, go back and make recommendations with that information in mind.
Yeah. So you've got a strong record yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so I've asked everyone this question, I'll ask you as well. Outside of the guidelines that have been provided, what opportunities do you see on the Community Oversight Board?
Well, I will say I don't begrudge you the decision that you have to make. You've got a number of very, very qualified candidates, but what I think is important to consider is it almost, the saying that comes to mind is, it doesn't matter what you reach if you don't produce receipts. So you got to be able to say what it is that you've been able to accomplish, what it is that you've done in the community. And so those in the community who have been making a contribution, who are doing what their level best to make an opportunity for others to feel connected and a part of the process and at the table in terms of influence, it's important for us to for them to feel empowered. I think that we've got to come to the Community Oversight Board with ideas. I'm not an expert in some of these areas, but I think it's important that we be able to hit the ground running. And so when we're considering how best to serve the community, we've got to think about adverse child experiences for young people who are impacted by difficult home lives, for individuals who are outside of sort of the paradigm of being able to vote. So registering people to vote is very important, but we have undocumented individuals in the community who are impacted by policing. We have individuals who are suffering from many different kinds of mental health and distress issues, and so those are also very important. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that there are individuals who were formerly incarcerated who no longer have the right to vote, who are having impacts as well and are being impacted by the role of policing in the community. And so it's important that they have advocates on the board. And I'm very interested in being able to connect with that part of the community as well.
Thank you very much. We've only got 1 minute left, if you don't mind. I'll just, anything you want to say, because we got a minute left. Someone could ask a question. If he starts talking, he'll take us 5 minutes to get out of here. So we've only got 1 minute left, and he knows I'm right. But anything you want to add in the last minute?
I will just say it's deeply humbling to have so many of my friends and colleagues and comrades here to support me today. Being a part of this process has meant a lot to me. There's a lot that I've been through in my life that I never thought I'd be able to be in a moment like this, and so I'm deeply humbled and honored to have the opportunity to serve, and I'm grateful to have you guys here. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve. We do really appreciate
And
it.
Mr. Chair, if we could just quickly thank, we have a couple of people that actually worked on getting the referendum on, and I really want to thank you for your leadership, and I think it's been definitely seamless. But we also want to recognize them. We have Daria Hudson, we have Chicola Lane with us. We also have, help me out with your name. Nicole Knowles, and we have Rashida Fatiga. And can you help me out with your name too? I'm sorry.
Sheila Clemens-Lee.
Sheila Clemens-Lee. Just stick with me. We've seen about 100 people today. Bear with me. Bear with me. It's not that personal. But the point is we want to recognize you because we know the work that each of you do in the community, and we appreciate you helping us to move forward as a city, and that's what it's about. And so I just wanted to personally thank you on behalf, well, not just personally, but on behalf of the council members, because it's been a wonderful experience, and it would not have happened had y'all not done the groundwork to get it forward. So
Thank you. And I like to say that Timothy and Jamel were right there with us the whole time, which is why these two are Gideon's armies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
You can, but I think he's over there giving me the...
It's not about him.
No, okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
I just wanted to also talk about the importance of understanding in the national environment that we have where, for example, the Dreamers don't know if they are going to be able to have a driver's license tomorrow or not, how that impacts the police enforcement as well. Because being able to get a driver's license is connected to having that ability through the being a lawful dreamer or not. So there is a lot that immigrants like myself are dealing with every day as we interact with the police. And I think it's important that as we look for people for the board, we also keep that in mind, that having people have that empathy makes sense. So just wanted to raise that point.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Bobby, you need to cut it.
Cut it. Thank you.